manufacturing, and within that, smart manufacturing is important, is key to our long-term vision, our long-term objectives as a nation. Mint, of course, is a delight to read every morning. Very incisive reporting, sharp, very informative. And what I like most is very futuristic in its outlook. Typically, manufacturing is a subject we all talk about. But unless we are able to focus ourselves in connecting the dots with the most modern manufacturing techniques, what very often is called as smart manufacturing, where we have extensive use of AI, extensive use of Internet of Things, where we're looking at machine learning or machine manufacturing with 3D printers and stuff like that. These are areas which are going to open up a vast number of opportunities for India in the years to come, particularly given the huge talent that we possess in India. In fact, our young managerial talent, our young technical talent is today the envy of the world. And in a great measure, we are today not only providing services and merchandise to the world, we are providing a huge amount of resources, managerial talent, CEOs to international companies across the world. And that is one of the prime drivers of manufacturing in India. I think over the years, we missed out on some very good opportunities. When the developed world was moving away from manufacturing, they were focusing more on their consumer markets, on their services sector. We had a great opportunity to bring manufacturing to India. Sadly, we remained very focused on a very inward-looking economy. We did not allow our education systems to really go into vocational education and career focused on what the person really desires to do, and kind of lost the opportunity that came in the 80s and the 90s. We did liberalize some parts of our economy in 91. But I think the effort lasted only 2 or 3 years. Then politics took over, and the then government got embroiled in too many controversies. Then there was a long period of continuing coalition governments, a lot of instability in the ecosystem. The earlier government went into some free trade agreements which, to my mind, were not really very fair and equitable in terms of equal opportunity. Simultaneously with opening up the economy, we did not plan to strengthen our manufacturing base like we should have. And therefore, we are a little late in the game. Be that as it may, I think the time is now ripe to exploit the variety of measures that the Modi government is taking to promote and invite manufacturing to India. Whether it's our effort to reduce the compliance burden and make it easier to do business, whether it's our effort to decriminalize the laws and various sections of different laws, which are kind of intimidating to business persons. You might be aware we have introduced the Jan Vishwas bill, where over 100 sections of the laws, encompassing some 18 or 19 ministries, covering 42 different laws in India, at one go are sought to be decriminalized. Now there's a big messaging in that. It's a messaging of trust. It's a messaging that the government wants to look at business with an element of trust, and we believe that intrinsically all business and business persons are working for the collective growth and better future for India And we would like to look at all the business persons from that lens of partnership, from that lens of trust, and value the wealth creators, value those who help creating economic activity. And I think that is what is attracting both domestic and international manufacturing to grow in scale, to become more competitive, to offer goods of high quality, products which are contemporary in nature, and to add an icing to this effort, we brought in the production-linked incentive schemes. Almost 1,97,000 crores are committed to promote domestic manufacturing in several sectors. Many schemes are already out there, many more we are introducing in the next few months. We have a 76,000 crore outlay to promote semiconductor ecosystem to come to India, including chips manufacturing, wafers, the entire lexicon of products in the semiconductor industry. That is important not only as an important element of manufacturing, but also from the geopolitical or the strategic side, where our dependence is too much on the rest of the world and which has caused us dear. We saw that last year when even our auto sector literally lost out on huge opportunities for lack of adequate semiconductors. All in all, it's a collective effort between the government and the stakeholders to create that ecosystem which becomes very attractive for manufacturing to come to India. We've all been hearing of nearshoring, we've all been hearing of friendshoring. There are several countries which wish to have resilient supply chains with democracies, with countries where there's the rule of law, where there will be heard and not discriminated, where there's equal opportunity for domestic and international partners to work. All of this, ladies and gentlemen, provides us a very fertile field in which manufacturing can flourish in the years to come. Most of these efforts are with a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of work that we are doing together with all of you. I was at a program earlier this morning on PM Gati Shakti. The PM Gati Shakti and National Logistics and Master Plan are both efforts to provide for the necessary infrastructure which will make logistics more competitive, which will make industry far more appealing to set up in India, and will help create the building blocks that are necessary to come and manufacture in India. Simultaneously, we have also been focused on creating industrial parks, the large ecosystem of industrial corridors and industry parks. 4 of them are already up and about. Dholera, Vikram Udyog Puri near Indore. Dholera is in Gujarat. We have one in Maharashtra, the Shenkin near Aurangabad. Shendra Binkin, I am not able to remember the exact name. And there's a 4th which is right outside Delhi in Greater Noida. 4 of these industrial parks to begin with, many more are in the pipeline, where we are trying to bring industry to focus on high quality smart manufacturing. At the same time, we have 7 textile parks that we are going to come up with under the PM Mitra scheme, mega integrated textile parks, which will help us in bring the entire ecosystem of textiles on a cluster-based approach and provide the plug-and-play infrastructure necessary to manufacture high-quality and volume textiles in India. Defense is another area. A lot of focus has been done to become self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. Large part of our defense requirements are gradually moving to be manufactured in India. and more continue to look at defense, where we've allowed up to 100% FDI should it be required. And we don't even ask for technology transfer. Logic being simple, that rather than importing a good, we'd rather have it manufactured, create jobs in India. Why should we be worried about the ownership? In any case, the imported goods come from a geography where we don't have ownership. It's the foreigners who own those companies. So we'd rather let them make in India, don't try to steal their technology, encourage them to give jobs to India, and that way our cost of procurement also will come down, with lower manufacturing costs being leveraged when these products are made in India. So the sky's the limit, my friends. As we value add, we'll be able to really catch or capture larger markets. We have room for both labor-intensive and machine-intensive industry to prosper in India. And I am confident, given the more recognition that the world has, that they want to engage more with India. You might be reading about the flurry of activity that's happening in the G20 all over the country. All the good things that are said and written about India now across the world. The amount of interest other countries have in expanding free trade agreements or comprehensive economic partnerships with India, all of this augurs well for India. And I would urge the young boys and girls in this room, manufacturing may not look all that attractive when we are young. It sounds very nice to be focused more on the services sector. But manufacturing is something which is long-term, steady business, which is focused on the real markets, where goods will always be required for our day-to-day life, and services ultimately will survive on the back of manufacturing. It's an overlay on manufacturing. Given that technology is highly valued and services are helping in many areas, going beyond manufacturing also, the share in the GDP is of course pretty high. But a lot of that will not survive without manufacturing. So it's safe, steady, more long-term, and I would urge young boys and girls to look at the opportunities in manufacturing. Internationally, the world is looking up to India. We have to grab that opportunity. So that, as I've said on an earlier occasion, Atmanirbhar Bharat is not only about making India Atmanirbhar. It is about making the world nirbhar on us. Puri dunya ko hamare upar nirbhar karna hai. That should be our goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing these crucial insights with us. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again?
Hello. Hi. Piyushji, thank you so much. I'll start from where you left off. When you discuss with companies that are looking to come to India and to make here, what are the most prominent anxieties that you encounter?
Of late, the anxiety levels have been very low. The anxiousness to do it faster have been more. But then, very clearly, there are occasional issues that come up, and we are, through the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and Invest India, working closely with the state governments and local bodies, making a continuous engagement with potential investors, potential people who are looking to manufacture in India, and we're getting good traction. There are occasions. The other day, somebody came up to me that he's looking for, I think, 500 acres or 100 acres of land. But he needs it in a place which has a common effluent treatment plant. And he'd been trying to locate something in a couple of states. And was facing some challenges at the operating level. So I was able to make a phone call to my colleague minister in the state, and or possibly I was there for the G20 meeting when I just casually mentioned it to him. And then he was able to quickly go there, meet the people, and they in fact apologized that you had to even talk to somebody. It should have happened in the normal course. The way we've built it out now, there's a huge sensitivity, even the entire ecosystem. Even the officials are very responsive to investors now. Land is today mapped on a national land bank, which is all out there in the computer, in the internet website. So we are trying to make it easier that everybody gets everything on a platter through digital and online means. But then there are occasions when sometimes a little bit of hand-holding helps. There could be some anxiety levels that were prevailing some time back around localization of data, or some issues around our patent laws that occasionally keep coming up, but I can assure you we are very much conscious of our responsibilities, and we are working to sort out these problems on real-time basis. We are in fact looking to improvise on the patent laws. So if any of the colleagues here have an ideas or anything contribution to make to help us in what we can do to make our patent laws better, so that we can invite more R&D, more research, more innovation to India. That's another huge employment opportunity waiting to be grabbed, particularly when innovation in India happens at far more competitive prices. We are also looking at better testing infrastructure across the country. Our idea being that wherever there are clusters of certain industry, we should ensure testing facilities which are modern, contemporary, to be available for the industry over there. So BIS and FSSAI both have been mandated to build. First we've mapped all the lab facilities, put that on Gati Shakti. Now we are finding the gaps, so gap analysis is going on across the country. And we are, for example, recently we located that in Rajasthan, I think Bhiwadi area or near Jaipur, we need to have an electrical transformer testing facility. There's a lot of manufacturers there, but they have to send their transformers long distances. So we talked to the state government, bought a piece of land or got a piece of land from them, and now BIS is setting up the testing facility. Another open invitation, and through you to all your readers, whoever believes that any testing facilities are required of a particular type, or modern testing is not available in India, you need modern equipment. We are ready and willing. Contact Bureau of Indian Standards or the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Our officials will be very, very open to ideas from all of you.
Sir, give us a sense of, as you said, there is a lot of focus on friendshoring. And everyone has woken up in the aftermath of the COVID crisis, and then of course the war in Ukraine subsequently, of the need to diversify your supply chain as well as manufacturing bases. So broadly as a concept, we hear about it, we all know it's underway. You of course have a ringside view into it. You're here, I mean so many leaders are here for G20 meetings, etc. What insight can you give us in terms of the real conversations that are happening in this regard, in that move towards India?
I tell you, it's amazing to see the amount of commitments people are making in their boardrooms, both in terms of investing in India and in terms of manufacturing in India. Those who are in the investment space very often tell us, and then they have a few suggestions also. So there was a suggestion around delisting of companies in India. It is still a process where until you get all the shareholders on board, it becomes difficult. I remember an investor telling me that, were you able to sort that piece out as it is in other parts of the world? They're looking at another $40 billion of investment. Now, 40 billion is very attractive, but we as government have to balance everybody's interests. We have to ensure that the small shareholders don't get a raw deal. So it'll need a little bit of work, it'll need more stakeholder consultation, and we'll see if we can balance the small shareholders' requirement and the investors' suggestions. Maybe we'll get a solution. But I can tell you, these are very small conversations. The general perception for people outside is India is the place to invest in, India is the place to be in. Similarly on manufacturing, people recognize that the talent that we have and the huge marketplace that we offer make India both attractive for manufacturing for domestic demand and for world markets. I'll explain it with 2 data points to you. Why the domestic demand is going to be huge. Of course, our own focus on infrastructure, our growing economy, the world's fastest growing economy, adding significant value to our GDP every year. So if you see the last 30 years, let's say 3 decades, we've grown about 11.5 times in terms of India's size of GDP in dollar terms. And this was not the best of times, coalition governments and all of those difficulties I talked about. In an atmosphere, in a situation where we are making so many game-changing efforts to make it easier to do business, and our own rank came down from 142 to 63, would have become probably much better if another neighboring country had not tried to game the system and the whole ranks were abolished. We would have been much better by now, given the amount of work that's been done to reduce compliances. In that situation, to my mind, this growth in the next 25, 30 years will give us another probably $30, $35 trillion over and above the $3.5 trillion that we are today. So imagine the delta of opportunity from $3.5 trillion to 35, 40 trillion is a huge delta adding to our GDP. No other country in the world has this delta of opportunity. And the world understands that. That's why they want to come manufacture in India at competitive prices and serve India. Now, because of the large Indian market, your cost of production will be most efficient with scale. As all of us know, scale brings in efficiencies and effective lower costs. That will make their products competitive in the rest of the world, rest of Asia and Africa, also in the developed world, which is looking for goods and services from India for their own people. So one data point is this large delta of opportunity. The other data point, and I want you to reflect on it, it's directly not related to manufacturing or economics, but has a huge impact both on economy and on manufacturing. There was a time until not too far back in the distant past, not too far back, where people were still struggling with, if I may say, roti, kapda or makan. Movies have been made on this subject. Slogans were given for years and years. Effective action was minimalistic. So you would hear of a few 100,000 houses, if at all, being built for the poor in a year. That also was mired with controversies and corruption and leakages in the system. What Prime Minister Modi's government has done is always looked at scale so that we can saturate whatever program we take up. Saturate as in ensure that everybody who deserves or needs that gets it without fear or favor, without any discrimination. Now, when 35 million homes are built in a short span of time, you are actually taking 35 million families out of distress. There was a time where a young person would start saving small amounts of money that one day I'll build a home. Again, a lot of movies were made on it. You remember? Garonda and all of those movies, people saving small amounts of money to have a shelter of their own. And one person falls ill in the family. I had a neighbor when I was young in my home in Mumbai whose child ended up with thalassemia. A very well-to-do family. doing business, far more well-to-do than my own family. And the child ended up with thalassemia. Treatment was expensive. Finally, I had to take him to Italy. But there was a Dr. Ali, I still remember, who treated him, operated on the child. The mother of the child had to conceive several times. And they would check the bone marrow, but didn't get a matching bone marrow, so she had to go through several pregnancies before a child knew, the bone marrow of a fetus was matched. And they were able to get that child operated. I met that child in the US 2-3 years ago. Hale and hearty. But I still remember, it's loud and clear in my mind, there was a time the family had given up. They just couldn't afford it anymore. When the rest of the neighbors and family and friends and relatives pitched in, and that child is alive today. So when Mr. Modi ensures 500 million people free health care, can you imagine what a big service this is to our economy? Because today, a person, a family, a middle class, lower middle class, poor family has been assured food, has been assured shelter. Clothing, I think, is no more an issue. Even in the remotest parts of the country, affordable quality clothing is available. Healthcare has been assured for everybody. Education, we are trying to modernize and make it more contemporary, the national education policy, which promotes liberal arts, which promotes dual degrees, which promotes each one to pursue the career of his choice and his dream. So we want to get people out of that the Three Idiots story of a photographer becoming an engineer. That's not how India is going to prosper and progress. And can you imagine, Suchajit, you've been in this field far too long to know that education was the toughest thing to reform in India. And can you imagine, we've come out with a robust policy, such an open, modern policy, appreciated world over, and no criticism. No criticism even from the communists down south. Imagine a policy where 300,000 stakeholders were consulted. And we were able to come up. That's Prime Minister Modi's style of working. Now this ecosystem that he's creating, with the overlay of infrastructure, with the overlay of trust between business and the government, with the effort to keep business out of your lives, government out of the lives of business. Something which has helped our IT industry prosper. They kept out of government's hair, and government kept out of their hair, thanks to Prime Minister Vajpayee at that time. When the Y2K bug had come in and the IT industry was in its infancy. Why I'm sharing all this with you is this, today, ladies and gentlemen, has helped create a story, a 1.4 billion aspirational Indian whose basic needs are all taken care of. Young population, talented, hugely talented, who's today aspiring for the good things of life, who wants washing machines, who wants dishwashers, nuclear families. Women is going out there to work. Television, I think, is a given, not a luxury. Like refrigerator has become a given, not like a luxury of the old times. All of this is opportunities, business, is opportunity for our startups, opportunity for manufacturers to produce at scale, which is where the social programs of this government empower India. What Prime Minister Modi is often talking about. Our digital thrust, our technology thrust, our innovation thrust, our social programs are all empowering young India. And that is what is attracting the world to come to India.
You're absolutely right. We had in fact recently interviewed the CEO of HUL, Hindustan Unilever, and he said the demand for their products in rural areas could sustain because of the government's food program. If people had to spend their money on food, they would not have anything left for other essentials. So, very valid point on the social programs. While being mindful of the time, I have two other questions. We'll see. You have another 5 minutes. One is, to your mind, what is the single biggest challenge in being able to take the share of manufacturing in GDP from about 18% to 25%?
Only one, my friends. Only one. No other challenge. We can do it. Those 17 to 25, frankly, if you do the maths, it will mean manufacturing will have to grow at nearly 20-25%. So it's a pretty big, steep challenge when the country itself will be the fastest growing economy. So the whole country will move up. So manufacturing to almost become 1.5 times, it'll have to have twice the rate of growth that the country as a whole will have. So it's a big challenge, but doable, eminently doable. Only one challenge. If all of us who are either in manufacturing or who are consumers, after all, we have 140 crore consumers, right? And I represent the consumer also. So my concern is on the other side for the consumers. If we only take one pledge, and that is that we'll focus on quality. One word which can transform the future of India and India's manufacturing and our ability to serve the rest of the world. Quality. Those days and that mindset should be buried deep, deep in the sea when every product would have for export quality. You remember that? There used to be a label and आप दुकान में जाके क्या बोलते थे भाई export quality का कपड़ा दिखाओ, export quality का transistor radio दिखाओ या TV दिखाओ. That has to go away. There's only one quality, that's good quality, internationally acceptable, high quality product. The day as a nation, all of us, and you can play a big role through the Hindustan Times Group and Mint, journalists across the board are all your friends. If you help us take this message to the country, be demanders of good quality as consumers. Don't settle for second best. If you are jilted, complain. I think we have a very simple process now, online or through telecalls, 1815 number, one complaint number for all consumer grievances. We are taking very proactive steps. But quality, if we can absorb that in our lives, this country is sorted. We are all sorted.
The thing with listening to Piyush ji is that, I mean, you're always so positive and, so driven. I'm sure it's inspirational to everyone in this room. Last question. On, one of my favorite models of industrial developments in some ways is actually Italy, where, whose Prime Minister you're meeting later today, where a large number of small businesses, many of whom are world champions in that tiny niche that they do. And what that does, of course, is it broad bases prosperity, geographically broad bases development, and all of that. So what role can our MSMEs and startups play in furthering this agenda?
We've all heard the statistics by now that MSMEs are truly the backbone of our economy. Startups are doing extremely well. From 4 unicorns 7 years ago, when Startup India mission was launched, we are over 100 unicorns now. Collectively, they're coming up with some brilliant ideas. Some of the startup ideas are just mind-boggling, and one wonders how nobody thought about it for so many years. Some of them are so elementary in their thought process. So on both these scores, I think we have a huge role for MSMEs and startups. At the same time, we must bear in mind that the startup ecosystem overlaid with innovation or with innovative ideas will depend a lot on MSMEs, because they will need somebody to actually produce or provide the basic needs of, suppose Oyo is doing homestays, let's say, take an example. Ultimately, he'll need somebody to furnish that home, provide the gadgets, the equipment for managing and monitoring the entire program. So all our startups, Paytm and all the financial services, they'll need the machines, they'll need the readers of the thumb impression and all of that, right? So that ultimately MSMEs or manufacturing will support the startup ecosystem in a big way, always. And big industry will bring scale, which is necessary. Ultimately, a car will not be made in an MSME. But a large vehicle manufacturer will have 1,000 people around him in the ecosystem. Some manufacturers, MSMEs, some service providers. It could even be a dhaba or a lodge where the visitors who come in for quality control or suppliers or drivers or the workers all will eat or live or whatever. So the ecosystem around each large unit, what used to be earlier called anchor investor. It's that anchor investor, and rightly so, the anchor ship keeps the ship at one place. The anchor investor would build the whole ecosystem around it. Similarly, the large units very often help the MSME sector flourish around it in a number of different sectors. Cement can't be made in an MSME, but the cement plant will have hundreds of MSMEs around. But there'll also be sectors, for example, textile, where MSMEs by themselves also can play a big role. Garment manufacturing, the small processors and stuff like that. Small ginners, many of whom would be MSMEs. So it's a mixed bag. On their own strength, MSME add huge value to the economy. But without them, even a large manufacturing ecosystem will not survive. So it is truly the backbone of our economy.
Piyushji, thank you so much for taking time out from a busy day and being here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause, please, for our Honorable Commerce Minister. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much, sir, for your precious time. Well, once again, I request you all to kindly take your seats. We will move ahead. Well, one thing that we are surely going to take from today's talk is that we would always talk about the export quality products. But yes, what he said makes a lot of sense, that rather than saying export quality, we will surely keep in mind